Hi, and welcome to the 10 square metre workshop. My Dudley tool chest, see the series, centre section is getting close now. One more little job to do there. I need a home for these two steel rods. They're part of the spares for the combination plane. There's room behind the plane to fit them, and here's an opportunity to be unnecessarily complex. So how about this mount? Complete with abalone and mother of pearl inlay. And this is the situation so far. The centre section, layer 1, is getting quite full now. I know there's a small space near the middle, but I'm sure inspiration will strike. With that done, I can now move to the two doors. I think this is going to be a bit more complicated. I have a set of carving chisels, which of course I want to include. Problem is, the total width of the chisels comes to 270mm, exactly the width of a door. I need to get a bit creative here. I need a holding frame to go in here that takes no space at the sides. Central to this is the support for the bottom of the handles. This is a fairly complex shape with octagonal cutouts, so I've CNC'd it with a bit of hand finishing. This was then attached to a backing board on which I engraved the names of the carving tools, so I can put them back in the right place. Next step is to fit this bottom piece, where I've cut slots to put the dividers. I'm cutting all the strips for this construction on the track saw from a block of wood, and I'm getting a really good finish. I don't know if you can see, but there's actually a sheen to that. Really doesn't need any further finishing. What do you do when you've got 11 pieces of thin wood that you need to be the same width? Well, you stick them in a mill and mill them flat. There's quite a lot going on in some of these parts. This is the bottom strip. And the top, it's slotted for the verticals. The underneath has housings for the bearings. And the front has a rebate for the tortoiseshell decoration. And that allows me to glue the back strip to the bottom. I can now start putting the verticals in, a few at a time, clamping as I go. Whilst that was setting, I made up a couple of the hinge assemblies. Originally I was going to have a cantilever out to the right, but I was a bit concerned about reliability and it took quite a bit of space, so I went for a simpler system. Yep, I know I should go for the most complicated, but there it is, where it will swing to the left. I decided to make the fixed hinge one assembly to prevent any issues with wood movement, etc. Here I'm bracing the two uprights to the back plate and using a steel rod to ensure that the bearing holes stay in line. Ready to braze. When just done, it doesn't look pretty, but it will clean up. And here it is, cleaned up, mounting holes drilled, and the bearings reamed to 5mm. And here's the complete assembly, with pins pressed into the arms. And here it is, all mounted on the shortened frame. I can now clamp it into position and mark out the mounting slot. With the hinge bracket mounted into its motors, I can mount the chisel holder and check its operation. Yeah, not a bad fit at all. That meant I could now fit the end piece. I left it till now so I could fit it to the edge of the door. Don't want any unsightly gaps. And here are the tools for layer 1 laid out, with all the fitments made, or almost made. Enough to make sure the layout works. Now I can start fitting it. So it's a matter of fitting and clamping the items, one or two at a time. And here they are in position. That's layers 1 and 2. The carving chisels make layer 3. Time to move on to the next layer. The hinges for the right hand frame are making out with some 3mm flat bar and some 16mm rod. The rod was first drilled out 9.9mm ready for reaming, before being parted at 28mm. No point in cleaning up the outside, I'm going to be brazing. After squaring off the strip in the mill, a 2.5mm deep slot was then cut in the rod So the bar was a sliding fit. And here it is, just after the brazing was done. Time to quench and clean up. Cleaned up with file and Scotch-Brite, it's ready for the next step, which is to saw it in half and mill it square. I now have the 2 pin tools I need. The bottom support will also be brass, and once again 2 parts. The 2 parts will be brazed together, but to hold them together in the right relationship while I'm brazing, I'm drilling and tapping for a 3mm bolt. I also drilled the hole for the pin and milled all the edges square. Time to braze. With that 3mm bolt holding everything square and flux applied around the joint, I can fire up the torch. I've got a good clean join. Now I just need to tidy it up. A few minutes with a Scotch-Brite wheel and a riffler file and I have the shape I want. The 2 steel pins required, I'm using stainless here, are a simple turning job, although a fairly good finish is required of course. One is a press fit into the lower bracket, the other attaches to the cabinet frame via a centre screw. There's only side load on this pin. The bottom pivot was then let into the frame. With the side piece pivoting correctly, I can now make up the rest of that frame. This is a matter of putting in various pieces to hold the tools as you go along. It's a little hard to get one's head round this 3-dimensional system, especially when it's swinging out in 2 directions. So, bit at a time. You can keep trying and planning, but there comes a point where you have to glue it up. Sanded down, it's time to add more tools, until there's no more space left. The design language, if you like, is that the frame is mahogany style wood, anything that directly holds a tool is ebony, any exposed fixing is brass, any exposed space in the ebony is decorated with mother of pearl. So, after some time spent doing what feels a bit like a cross between crossword puzzles and origami, is the inside of the frame mounted. This is layer 4. Enclosing the frame shows layer 5. I used the same techniques previously shown to make a small catch at the bottom of the frame. This holds the frame closed, but one just presses the catch and it's open. It was at this point I decided to address the embarrassingly uncluttered bottom chisel mounts. And this is what I came up with, machined from a solid block of wood. Yeah, and I do mean machined, I did it in the mill. I could have done it by hand, but hey, there's a lot of work in that. And here it is, in the white, protecting the chisels and holding 5 nail punches. And here it is, with the labels, finish and bevel gauge added. The space between the chisels I used to store some bits for the brace. This of course fits behind the frame. That completes the right hand door, and now I can move on to the left. This was done in the same manner, with the door swinging out the other way. If you've watched earlier episodes, you know I had an area in the main cabinet, a space with nothing to fill it. Right here. I already have my Stanley hand router, it fits on the bottom, but it can be a little big for some tasks. So I decided to craft a mini router, mainly out of brass, fitted with mahogany handles. And, quelle surprise, It's an excellent fit in the gap. Is this cheating? Well, show me the rules. Getting close to completion now. Next time, I'll do a tour. The tool chest is really coming on now. Not that much further to go, I think. See you next time.